What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 47 of Beyond the Finish Line, a running podcast that dives deep into the stories that transcend far beyond the distance. I'm your host, Joe Hardin. I'm a passionate trail and ultra distance runner and enthusiast myself. Whether you're elite at back to that grinder, this is your space to learn, grow, and get inspired. Friends of the pod, you guys have been like crushing it with the comments. So thank you so much. I love seeing the Spotify comments, the feedback. Just keep those coming. Like I said, I love you all so much for doing that, and you guys have been like hitting up the YouTube channel, which is awesome. Um, like creating the shows and like content and all that stuff. It's fun, but what makes it even more like fun and like I guess rewarding is seeing you guys like your feedback on the podcast and the YouTube channel now. And we are so close to 55-star reviews on our network. It's crazy. So while I've got you here, take the rectangle that you're listening to this show with and just like scroll up to Spotify and give the show a 5-star review. It means everything to me. It lets me know you're listening. It lets me know that maybe I'm doing like an okay job at this. So it just means a lot to me. Keep it going. I love you all for doing so. Episode 47. So we're getting so close to 50 episodes, which is really wild. Um, I don't know. I can't remember what the statistics are. That's a tough word, but there's only like a single digit percentage of people that make it past like a dozen shows, and now we're approaching 50. That's that's pretty rad. So thank you all for listening. I can't thank you enough for doing so. So episode 47, I've got Nicholas Steele coming today. He's a phenomenal runner. Not only that, but if you follow him at all, like the positivity that he puts out on his Instagram and his YouTube channel is incredible. So it got down to like negative whatever temperature a few days in Indiana and like 67-mile-per-hour wind. So I was like quarantined to my treadmill for a few runs. And I found Nick's Badger 100 video, and not only is he like crushing 100 milers, but he's doing it with like so much joy and like positivity. I was just like blown away by the videos. Plus, he did something really cool. He was the assist to my buddy Jeff Walker, who was episode I think 32, and they went 240 plus miles, which is wild. It was really fun to watch, and I just had to have Nick on the show. He was on 10 Junk Miles a while ago. He had him and Scotty. It was a great conversation. Scotty was on the show, so this full circle with all these shows and all these amazing people that we meet. Like the Midwest running scene is bar none one of the best people. I mean, everyone in the running community is so amazing. But so I was really jazzed when Nick agreed to come on the show. Um, I'm looking forward to getting to talk to him. So without further ado, we'll bring Nick forward for this podcast. What is up?
What's up?
All right. Well, like I said in the before we started recording, I've been following along for a while. I love what you're doing, so it's really cool to have you in the podcast. I had to get to know you. I was following along with Queenie's Backyard and like your YouTube videos and your Instagram. I just love it, man. Like I think you see like a lot of content, and there's and I guess just like long story short, it's like a breath of fresh air to see what you're putting out there. And not only are you just like crushing all these miles, but I just feel like you're doing it with like an attitude that you just maybe don't see everywhere on social media. So yeah, just thanks for coming on. Like I like to do with all my guests, it might be a big question, but I always like to like kind of break the ice. Just tell us who Nicholas Steele is.
Um, I would say summed up, um, who likes running. I just share miles with people during these races, and we chat about life. And I work at Chipotle. Uh, I run, I edit videos, and that's pretty much it. And main goal is to push my limits in this life and also inspire others to do so. So that's why I post all this content, and that's why I always try to stay as positive as possible because it makes the miles easier, uh, but it also inspires other people to enjoy their lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something that like I know there's something some science that I don't understand. Like if you can like put a smile on your face, or like I know you may be like suffering at the time, but I've noticed even if I just like try to force a smile at first, it seems like maybe a few miles down the road I don't have to force it anymore. It seems like it kind of just takes over. It definitely helps like check off the miles. So yeah, definitely, I agree with that. So so I guess tell me how'd you get into running? Like, I mean, you I mean you're like what's your goal? Doing 1,600 milers this last year?
Last year the goal was 16. Yeah. And then, well, originally the goal was 15 and then turned into 16. And then at the end of the year, I picked up a couple more. So I ended up doing 18 100 plus milers. So the longest one was the T-Bunk Endurance Challenge. It was 202 miles. And then the shortest one, I believe, was probably the Hennepin 100 or maybe Prairie Spirit 100. The Hennepin 100 was 100.1 miles. So anywhere above 100 miles, up to, 200 plus.
Yeah, so I mean I guess just if you would, maybe we could like rewind back to before that. Like how'd you even get like tell us about your running journey. I mean, I guess I'm really intrigued about that.
Yeah, I mean, I started running essentially back when I was in forced to run a mile every single week for gym class. And I didn't really enjoy it too much, at the time, but that was essentially my spark into it. And then I got into track in middle school, like later in middle school, and then in high school got into cross country. And then in college, I started doing triathlons, and then ultra marathon came soon after. And then just kind of the love for running so many miles just came from there. And we just kept logging more and more and more. And in a way, it kind of turned into an obsession in a way that um, cures my addictive personality because I used to use my addictive personality on other things like alcohol. And now, I've taken that out of my life and I just said, if we want to run, more miles, or even if we want to drink, we're going to run instead. So everything all resorts down to running.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Congratulations on your sobriety thing. I think I'll have 7 years in December. But yeah, yeah, there's definitely something about that. Like same way with me. I took alcohol and drugs out of my life and I didn't really know like what to do with myself. So I had all this like first of all, you have extra time and then you have extra energy and like I do with everything, I don't dip my toe into anything. I just like jump straight in the deep end, and now here we are with like running ultras. But um, yeah, so thanks for sharing that. Like, what made you specifically pick like to do like 16 or the original goal was 1,500 milers, but what made you decide to like pick that goal?
Um, well, after running 150 miles at the T-Bunk Endurance Challenge in Wisconsin, this was back in 2024. I recovered very quickly, like within a couple days. And in that time of my life, I was uh, just kind of going through it, internally. And I was just like, you know what? These things are in a way curing me. So why don't we just, if we can recover this quickly, why don't we just bulk them? So I looked up the question of how many somebody has done within a single calendar year. And at the time it was 50 by a guy named Walter. And I was like, well, there's no way we can do 50. So I searched the most local area, as in like a 8 hour ish drivable distance, and there was like 15 there. So I went for 15, and then I was going to go for a 50 miler too, the Ice Age Trail 50. It sold out. I was too late to register, so I was just like, you know what? Let's just toss another one in there. So I ended up doing 16. Oh,
That's so cool. What do you think? What do you think contributes to like you being able to recover so quickly? Because I mean,
Uh,
that's like a lot back to back to back to back.
yeah, and a couple of them were back to back to back weekends. So
Wow.
they're weekend. Oh yeah, and I believe the key to recovering quickly is to learn from your prior experiences and build on them. You know, as you continue to log these ones, you know, and you not just, you know, learn from them, but you actively, you know, try to get better at recovering and at running them too. You're just exponentially going to get better. You'll still make the same mistakes, you know, here and there, but the thing is, if you're, you know, zoning in on those mistakes happening in real time, then you can acknowledge it and you can ask yourself, hey, are we going to let this mistake happen again? Because I already know it's going to happen. Or are we going to, you know, try to figure out a solution? Even if you've never like figured out a solution for it before. Like for one example is whenever I wear tights, I just so happen to chafe more it like down below. And I didn't know that until after doing that 150 miler in 2024. And I got like severe chafing down there, and I was like, okay, I don't understand, you know. And then I bulked all those 100 milers up until it got cold again, and then I put on the tights again, and then it happened again, and I was like, okay, well maybe it's the tights, you know. So then when it gets cold now, I don't wear tights anymore. I just wear like a loose, long, you know, pants layer on top of, you know, my normal boxers, and that works, you know. So it's just like testing these things when you're out there running, and people do say don't test things when it comes to like race day, you know, but sometimes when it's ultra distances, things don't happen until you're already 80 miles in. So there's only one way to really test it out, you know. So yeah, I think it's just building on those prior experiences and learning from them and optimizing on them too. So yeah.
That's a kind of a cool note, something that you notice. Like that's yeah. I mean, who would have thought like a pair of pants would do that? It's kind of cool that you were able to like find that problem. Like, well, that doesn't work anymore. Like that's kind of neat. That's I think that's my favorite part of this whole thing. It's like constant troubleshooting. I think that's what draws me to it just as much as like I love logging big runs and long miles too, but also I like always having like a little puzzle to solve because I've been like slowly stacking my miles up more and more and more, and I'm like learning, what works better, what not to do. Sometimes it takes me many mistakes to figure out that I'm like, okay, we're not going to do that again for like the seventh time. But I think that's one of my favorite things about the world of ultra distance running.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's cool. So when when did you? I guess my question is, what was your first ultra? Like, when did you decide, like, all right, this is it? I'm gonna like maybe run us through that progression, how you got to like your first 100 miler or your first 50 miler.
Yeah, my first ultra marathon was back in 2023. It was in, I think, August 20th, 2023. Um, I essentially just wanted to run until I couldn't run anymore, you know, and it was really cool because I didn't know about the world of ultra running. Um, I only had seen this 1 mile last person standing video on YouTube, which like they literally did 1 mile. It was like a couple hundred feet of elevation gain per loop, and they'd do one loop, you know, and then get back out there and do another one and do another one. And then I think I researched it, and then I found out about the backyard ultra format, though I have never seen like a backyard ultra race. So I was just like, you know what, let's just do that format and see how far we can go. So um, I essentially just like held myself accountable every single loop and just kept looping. Every single hour I made it 13 yards, or it was like 54.9 something miles. And I was shocked, you know, I'd never knew that I could do that. And the previous night when I went to bed, you know, I never knew that that was within me. And so the question came, why can't we do 100 miles? You know, so a month later, or 2 months later, I set off to do 100 miles, and I failed. And then I learned from that failure. And 2 weeks after then, I accomplished 100 miles again. So, or for the first time. So it was my second attempt. And And that last or the first attempt was my last time that like I set off 400 miles and couldn't complete it. I did have a race this year where I did a back-to-back day of 100 milers. The first day was 100 miles. The second day was 24 hours. It's called the Jackpot Ultras. And I couldn't hit 100 miles in the 24 hours on the second day, but I did chop up the extra change mileage unofficially to hit that 100 miles. So it doesn't count officially towards the main goal that I'm trying to go for, which is person to do 100 official 100 milers, but it still counts towards like my own personal goal. So on my Instagram account in my bio, I have as of right now 29 times 100 miler, but of those 29 times, I think uh maybe I think it's 25 or 26 of them are official.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because you've done like you did your first 100 miler, like it was like an unsanctioned one, right? Like you just did it, right?
Yep, just here in my town. I was just like,
That's
you know what, let's do it. So, yeah, it was cool. It was wild. I was alone most of the time. I did have some friends that showed up for the start, and then we launched off, and I work nights at Chipotle, so usually I don't get up till later. So I think we started, or I started probably around like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. or something like that. And then a couple hours in, a couple of my friends, showed up and, I said hi to them and I was doing 10-mile loops around roughly. And so I did 10 of those. And during the night, I saw a couple more of my friends, and then I had to wait until like the morning, and my family came in from a town that's about 40 minutes away from here, and they watched me finish off the 100 miles. But it was pretty interesting because I was alone most of those miles, and for probably out of I think it was 22 hours for it was like 104 point something miles. It was exactly 4 marathons because I thought that was like a cool number, to like done 4 marathons. And throughout that entire time, I probably was with people that I knew for maybe like maybe like an hour or two, you know. So the rest of the time, 20 hours, I was by myself. And for that to be your first 100 miler, I feel like that's really helpful for all future 100 milers because if you do 100 miles officially, whether it's on an outback course or a looped course, you're going to see people left and right, so it's cool to like conquer that by yourself and then be able to see other people. So when you're out there by yourself racing these races and there's like a 2 4 hour stretch where you're by yourself, it's not that lonely out there because you're like, oh, I've already done this before, so I think that's kind of a cool aspect to it. But,
yeah. I think that's really neat. First of all, because that's been like heavy on my mind lately. So I have failed twice at the 100 mile distance. I ran like for some reason the 100K I can pretty much knock those out. But 100 milers I'm struggling. I always run into problems in the middle of the night. Then I get in like my own head about it and like I put too much pressure on it because like well I paid all this money for it and I did all this training, I drove all this way. So it's been like lately I've been really thinking about like just doing my own because I've got like a little 2 mile loop and to your point, I think that if I like put myself in that position to like be alone and like kind of like self-sustained a little bit more, I think it'll like kind of sharpen maybe like a little bit of like a mental toughness exercise too. So I've been thinking about that like when I go out running now, I'm like this would be the perfect loop to do that 100 miler like and I could use like my home as like the aid station or like my car or something. So I've been thinking about doing something similar, but just haven't quite like taken the leap yet. Um,
yeah.
so yeah. So you got me pretty fired up about that because I've been thinking about that ever. I think you did the 100 miles on the water tower, and that's what really got me like thinking about like picking like a loop like that lately. But
Yeah. The water tower, so it was a 50K every day. So I ended up doing 7 50Ks in the week. And I aid stationed from my car there. So about halfway through, I would pause my watch, and then go over to my car, just to like keep that, the circle on Strava so it doesn't like segment off of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, running just any distance in general, it can be 400 miles. You know, you can do that at any time you want. That's the cool thing. Like, yes, it won't be official if you do it by yourself, but you know that you've conquered it, you know. And then so when you go race these things and it costs money and you know you got to travel out, like you know you have some experience there that you know you didn't have before. I think it's just really cool that there's a mile everywhere. You know, there's a mile around our house, there's a mile around the block, there's a mile around our kitchen table. You know, like that would be cool to do 100 miles around your kitchen table. Very
That would be so awesome.
home, you know, or when you're aid stationed, you know, at your home. That's why my first 100 miler that I finished, I decided to aid station out of my car because I didn't want to give myself a chance to quit while I was at home because I'd never done something like that before. I think it'd be easier now since I have the experience. I think it'd be easier for me to, you know, if I did do one on my own, you know, to aid station out of my own place because I'm not going to stop. You know, I know to get back out there. Um, so I aid stationed from my car, and one of my best trail friends, his name's Matt Lamos. He has a nonprofit called Down with Running, and they're sponsoring me this year a little bit. And he just finished 100 miles on his own this morning. He started yesterday, and that's actually funny that that comes up because he was out all night, you know, all day yesterday and all morning, and he did 100 miles for Down with Running. So it's pretty cool.
Oh well, congratulations to your buddy Matt. What's the what do they do? Like, what's the organization do that's sponsoring you?
Yeah, so it's for people with you know disabilities and like assisting them. Um and so it's like a nonprofit for that, and it just allows like um a place for them to go and be able to grow themselves essentially.
Oh, I
So
love that. So, what do you think? So, that first 100 miler that you did, like on your own, what do you think? I guess I'm curious because I haven't been past 72 miles. Um, what do you think you learned about yourself, like during that first, like unsanctioned, like 100 miler that you did?
um I mean it was cool that I had already done 54 miles because I knew every single step after 54.91 miles, I think it was. Every single step was uncharted territory, you know? And in a way, it's not because I know, you know, all the trails that I'm on. I've been on them before. But if you look at it in terms of mileage terms, you know, that's it's like sailing the seas and never being in a place that you've been before, you know, or even like hiking the mountains, never being in a place you've been before. Like I've never been that place, so uh over 54.91 miles. So after reaching that and just like continuing to move forward, I just kept my mind open to every single signal that would come through and like and be able to adapt to that. So I was ready for, you know, anything like injury or like uncomfortability. Like uh I had no idea what was going to happen, you know, because it's interesting how we create these barriers in our minds, you know, like why do we stop at 100 miles? You know, like why do people run 100? Why not 100.3? You know, why isn't the big hype 100.3 miles? You know what I'm saying? So like it's just interesting because you know when it comes down to like those barriers in our minds, we just like kind of cap ourselves, I feel sometimes at those, and that makes backyard ultras so much more uh I would say thrilling because there is no finish line, you know, if you don't tell yourself there's a finish line. So you just keep going, you know. And I've noticed my big struggles in backyard ultras is sleep deprivation. And I would say that's probably the main thing, actually, just sleep deprivation. So it's just like getting through, you know, the night. And when you're in the day, it's easy to stay awake because it's light out. You know, it's not that hard. Just keep moving forward and looking at all the birds flying around and stuff. But in the night, you just like stare at the ground or even try to look around, but it's just dark. And I like to say, darkness only consumes those who become fearful of it. And I truly believe that, you know, that that's something that's true. You know, if you truly become fearful that it's going to put you to sleep, it's going to put you to sleep, you know. And I experienced that at the Jackpot Ultras. That's why I couldn't hit 100 miles in the second 24 hours on the second day. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the world is what you make of it, you know. It's just how do you go about it.
Well, I love what you just said. So how do you think that you like overcame that? Like, I mean, I'm gonna like paraphrase what you just said. How do you think you like overcame that fear of like the dark, kind of like stopping you and then like making you like, yeah, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, how did you like overcome that fear? I guess like at Jack Paul Ultra, you said that you ran into that, but
I think you just have to acknowledge that it's there and that it's coming, and then just by acknowledging it that it's, you know, there, just cancel it out with something else, you know. Whenever I do feel very tired, I try to chug coffee, blare music in my ears, and try to just keep the idea of sleep out of my mind, because if you can keep it out of your mind, then it's not gonna be there, you know. And amplifies over these ultra distances. You know, when you truly believe something to be true, it will become true. Because you know you're just out of your mind. You know, you haven't slept for days. You know, so
yeah, I love that. That's cool. Yeah, whenever I've learned like whenever I if I'm like struggling like over an overnight session, I always just like, yeah, I'm tired, but you're like you're supposed to be tired. We've been running like however long at that point. But I love that idea of just being like just kind of not even letting the thought happen, which is pretty interesting.
yeah.
So, what was like your? We're gonna talk backyards because I'm like super curious about Queenie and like, but when at what point did you decide like, hey, we should you've taken on like some 100 milers. Like, at one point did you decide we should take this like multi-day? Like, when was that moment and what was that like for you? I guess.
Like in the race in the Queenie backyard.
Yeah, Queenie, or like some of like the 200 plus that you've done, or like the 100 pluses that you've done. Like when
Oh
you're
yeah.
getting into whole nights and all that. But like, when was your first one? I guess actually.
I guess my first multi-day thing was well, essentially, I think it was my second 100 miler. So this one was unofficial. My first two were unofficial. I ran from here in Mankato, Minnesota to Shakopee, Minnesota and back. So it was about 133.57 miles, I think, somewhere around there. And it was just a whole journey of self-discovery and just, you know, dropping the aspect of time. That was my big goal going into it, is just to take everything that I perceive time to be, you know, as I was always like, "Oh man, I'm behind time. Oh man, you know, like I'm not doing too well on this split, you know, oh man, time." So I was like, take everything about time and just leave it behind you, you know, and just go enjoy the journey. So that's what I did. You know, I launched off and it was all in country roads. My aid stations were gas stations, and it was probably on average around a marathon in between them. And so I went out, you know, got all the way down to, I think, well, I got down to Shakopee in, I think, like around 12 hours. So I went, you know, pretty far in that time. And then it took me a long time to get back because the second day was pretty hot and I ran out of water around 100 miles. So I just like um, looked around at all these nearby houses and I was like, oh, this one looks really nice. You know, they have an apple tree out in their front lawn. And so I was like, I really want an apple. You know, I was really delirious. And so I just went up to the front door and knocked on their door. Um, and there was an older couple that opened up the door, and they invited me in. And funny thing, their daughter also does ultra marathons, and so that's something that, you know, normally I wouldn't just go up to some random person's house, but yeah, they let me in, and you know we chilled in their gazebo for like about an hour, and we're just, you know, talking about this journey and talking about other things, and then I think I fell asleep for around 2 hours. Um, yeah, and they said they had to, like, check on my pulse and stuff because they thought I was, like, you know, like, something was wrong because I wasn't moving at all. And then so I guess essentially it took, me the full day to get out there. I think I started around 4 PM, so the full, rest of the day, all of the night, the full rest of the next day, and then it was the second sunset, on the way back, and back into Mankato, and I still had probably around 30 miles left when the sun went down for the second time, and that was pretty cool. Like just going through or into 2 nights, that was my first like eye opener on multi-day stuff, and I was like, man, like we could just live out here essentially. And then it just kind of progressed from there. It was a long time in terms of the amount of races in between that and then my second, multi-day thing. But
Oh man, I love that. So that like I'm currently training for my like for a 314 miler across Tennessee. So I've been doing something similar to like what you just described. I mean, I haven't done it 100 miles yet, but I've been just like having my partner like drive me to the next town over, which is like 18 miles, and then I'll like just with a debit card in my vest just like aid station, like gas stations, Dollar Generals, and hit
mhm.
those up my way home. That's how I've been training lately. So I love that you did that for like 100 miles because that's like same thing. I've been like every time I go out, like I've been on Strava a lot lately, like mapping out like this would be like a perfect 100 mile loop, or like this out and back would be because I think you can traverse like 50K across my entire county. So I've been like thinking about maybe if I did like an out and back or like an out and back like a couple times. So I think that's really cool that you did that, and how I think it's like really spectacular that the house you stopped at just so happened that they had a family member who runs ultras. So it's like, so
Yeah,
I think they got it too. So that's pretty interesting.
yeah. Ann and Steve, that's the owners of that house. That's the
That's
people.
cool.
It was kind of cool. UB and Jay, and they gave me like a bag of Doritos and a whole bunch of water, and like apple from their tree, like, and it was asleep. Like I fell asleep with my hand in the Dorito bag, so it was like in the Dorito bag, and like I was just like out, and it was just, oh man, I'm telling you, dude, when I woke up, like my body was so stiff. Like that was the first time where, I was like, oh man, we still got 33 miles left, bro. Because there's no other, like, I didn't drive out there, like I have 33 more miles to make it back to my house. And like I'm not gonna call up my dad and be like, hey, can you drive, 70 miles to come pick me up. Like I was just like, let's drop all aspect of time, keep moving forward. That's it. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. So I think that's been my main. Like you mentioned, we put like these barriers on ourselves, and that's what I keep doing with myself at like the official 100 milers. Because then I all like you know how it is. Like my race day never goes. Like I always have these like grand plans for my 100 miler, and then as soon as it falls apart, which it always does, I'm always like, well, now you like, and then I start doing like this aid station math in my head and like cutoff math, and every time that I run into that, that's when like then my attitude gets like crappy. And then so yeah. So I totally understand. It's like and then all you're thinking about is time instead of like enjoying the process of what you're doing. So I love that idea of just going. Like and like you have like who cares about what time you get to whatever town or whatever. So I really love that like aspect of what you did there.
Yeah, I'd really advise doing that, just go out there, do it on your own, if you haven't already, like why wait? Because like as you know, know when it comes, So we don't know how long we got. So why not just do it right now? Like just do it right now. And the worst thing that it will do to you is beat you up, but you'll learn from it. You'll get experience from it, and then that'll help you on future races. And also, like you said, there's no time limit at all. And even in these races itself, I'm sure there are some races out there that, would pull you off course or something like that, or they would say, hey, you're done, because you didn't meet cutoff. But I'm sure there most you can still just keep moving forward. Wouldn't be able to use the aid stations stuff, maybe. I'm not entirely sure about that, but when it comes down to like that jackpot ultras races, where I did it was like 94 point something miles in that second day. I just kept moving forward, like there were still racers out there doing the second day 100 miles. So they're, still running 100 miles. And I didn't use any of the aid stations and stuff, but they didn't care too much about that. Like I just kept moving forward. And it took me like an extra hour and I don't know how many minutes, but, you know, it's it's just a time limit, it's not even something that we can grab onto, you physically can't grab time, like sure, if there was no water out there, like that's something that's real, that's something that actually be worried about if you don't have any water because you can get dehydrated and a lot of things can happen from that. But if you're not going to reach the time, like that's just it's not real, so it's just kind of cool. I would highly advise that to anybody that is thinking about conquering a distance, go conquer it. Like just plan it out. Be accepting to things going wrong because things always go wrong. I guarantee one of the 100 milers that I've done in my life, like something has gone wrong. But just being open to adapting to those changes, that happens. That's the best thing you can do. Just be open to every possibility and just be out there and just enjoy it. You know.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah, adaptability is huge, man. If you don't have like the flexibility to adapt, like yeah, just like you said, it always it always goes bad. Something's it's not gonna go bad, but it's never gonna really go the way you want it to. So you have to be willing to like change on the fly. But that's cool. I might have to start planning maybe I need to just execute this route that I've got that I've been pondering on lately.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about like your introduction to backyards because you just did something really cool at Queenie's backyard. And I'm curious about like you ran with my buddy Jeff. Shout out to Jeff Walker. You got to share a lot of miles with him. He's probably one of the best people that I know. So that's cool that you got to run with Jeff. So let's talk about Queenie. Like what made you pick backyards? I don't think Queenie's your first backyard, but so maybe run us through like your first backyard that you ever stepped into.
Well, essentially, my first backyard was my first ultra marathon. I did the backyard format, but on my own. So, I just held myself accountable every loop. That was like my first intro to just ultra marathon and just like pushing distance. But I've done 5 official backyards, and I believe, yeah, my first one officially was Queenie Backyard Ultra back in 2024. And I got out there, and that was my third 100 miler. And my previous distance PR was 104 point whatever miles it was for 4 marathons, right? And or no, it was Queenie was my bad. Queenie was my second 100 miler. So my third ultra marathon, second 100 miler. And so I just got out there and I did 25 loops and I was just under my distance PR and I was absolutely destroyed. So I was like, you know what? We have to do one more to PR the mileage. And then we PR'd the mileage. And even though I was just absolutely obliterated, I left. And I remember just feeling so like dissatisfied within myself in terms of like mileage wise because um what's the point of running 104 miles plus a couple of extra miles just to PR your mileage when to PR your mileage again you have to go that entire distance again just to accomplish that. So because I definitely had stuff left in me, like I quit in the aid station, and I wasn't injured. I had some, a lot of soreness going on, but I could still get back out there on another yard. I remember in the yard at the aid station at my tent with my lawn chair, and I was just like watching the other runners just go back out on another loop, and I was like, man, and that was the first time when I was like, you know what, we're just going to keep moving no matter what, for all these other backyards. And so then since then, I think my next backyard was the Elm Creek Backyard Ultra in 2025, and that race is actually coming up here towards the end of April. And I did 170 miles, and I took the assist. It was 41 yards, and that was like my first time in like just trying to push myself to get back out there every single yard. And I ran up to the point where I felt like I was going to get injured. I had that feeling going on for quite some time there, like 20, 30-ish miles. The last 100 miles of that whole distance, I was by myself. My dad was there for the first 70, and then him and my mom had some other things planned, so they went out and to a concert, and so I was like alone essentially for the last 100 miles, and I didn't sleep at all. And we went through the full, first day, first night, second day, and almost to the end of the second night. And so I was just losing my mind because I hadn't slept. And also, I think I ran out of food, and I was getting like a couple things, like some pretzels and stuff, but I wasn't nearly eating as much food as I needed to eat. Um, and that was a good stepping stone too, because that was, I believe, my fourth 100 miler of 2025. And it was a distance PR because my previous PR was 150 miles. And then the next two backyard ultras after then were around 130 miles. And then my previous backyard was Queenie. So yeah, Queenie was crazy, man. It was awesome to share a lot of loops with Jeff, and I made a prediction reel before race, uh, where I stated there are 5 legends, coming to this race, and the final 5 were those 5. So I thought it was
Oh,
kind of, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was absolute insanity. I'm almost done with the YouTube video. I think it's around 50 minutes so far, and I'm going into the final night, so there's only like a couple minutes left of edited footage to put out. But it was one heck of an experience. Yeah, it was awesome.
oh man, I can't wait to see that video. Yeah, yeah, Jeff is phenomenal. Like, so it had like, yeah, I could go on and on forever about how cool Jeff is, but you guys just crushed it. And I always joke that like I'm gonna use like Jeff is gonna be my spirit animal for my next backyard. I'm gonna try to tap into whatever he's got, But yeah, so tell me what tell me what you think. So you go from Queenie the year before to this Queenie. You said you went 170 at the previous Queenie, then 247 at this
Or
next one, or this
it was
last year.
it was 26 yards at the previous Queenie. I believe it was 108 miles. So 108 miles to
100.
147. Which sounds like a huge gap, right? But
Yeah.
there were races in between then and a lot of pushing limits and understanding and gaining experience on ultra running.
Do you think that's what paid? Like, do you think just overall experience between those that year is what contributed to like the performance at this year's Queenie?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that was my second 100 miler in 2024 for that Queenie. And then this Queenie, that was my 28th 100 miler. So I had a bajillion 100 milers in between, and where of those 100 milers were like back to back days, where I was ultimately doing 200 miles or multi-day stuff in one stretch. And yeah, there's just so much experience that I've learned. And going into Queenie, I just wanted to see how far I could possibly go. So I took all aspect of time, like I learned from my second 100 miler or third 100 miler, dropped it out of the window, and I just essentially ran until I couldn't anymore. And it's kind of interesting because even though we were 247 miles in, I felt like I still could have gone for another day, maybe two. I don't know. The thing that ultimately took me out was an injury that I had going on for about a day or so, with my left like muscle right outside of my shin. It was really swollen and very tender to the touch, and I think it was because my shoelaces were too tight. So I had to like loosen up my shoelaces and change up my stride length and then take it easy on the downhills. And ultimately that took me out. And then I was pretty scared about sleep deprivation because I hardly even slept at all. And that was because I forgot my earplugs or my headphones, my noise canceling headphones. Usually I put in earplugs and then put noise canceling headphones on top. And so it cancels out all noise. And it was a little loud in camp, so I wasn't able to sleep essentially the entire race, except for that 3 hour nap that we got because of the storms that were going down. So yeah, it was pretty sleepy.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I bet sleeping during a storm's pretty pretty wild.
Dude, I knocked straight out. I mean, we were all, I think, over 100K, so we were all, pretty well into this race. And, I think a decent amount of people left because, either they woke up and they're like, "Oh man, I don't want to continue," or, they were just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go home because 100K is all right." Um, but a lot of us did get back out there, and pursued through the storms. But it was kind of yeah, it was kinda wild. I remember looking over at my dad, and he had a rope tied to the top of the tent, and he was, like, sitting in a chair holding onto the rope, and my other, aide helper, my crew, her name's Ava, she's my coworker at Chipotle, and she was, like, there, like, recording me, and, she was, like, around at the tent, and, like, you could see it in the YouTube video, like, it's pretty crazy, there was you can look at the top of the tent, and it was just, like, storming down like crazy. It was just super loud, and no, I passed straight out, dude. I was pretty tired, so
That's wild. Yeah, I tell you, It's funny. There must be something about backyards because I remember 2 years ago at Grind on the Grid backyard. That's the one I'm going back to this year. It stormed in between the loops, like so severe. I don't know. Like, luckily the backyard didn't get we lost Nick. Cool. But like I was saying, there was like a really severe storm in between the loops, and like we got really lucky that it passed by quick enough where like the racing had to get paused or anything. But you made me think about that because we were like in the aid station, like three of us like holding onto the canopy, like while the storm blew through. It's like the first time I ever ran like getting hailed on in between. I think I might have been like maybe yard 6 or 7 at that point, but and it was like it hurt, but then it was like kind of refreshing afterwards, getting like that cold
Mhm.
rain and hail. But
Yeah. Yeah, I feel
that
like sometimes stuff like that, it's like it gets the adrenaline running a little bit, and it kind of wakes you up, especially if it's like night or something. But I've had many moments like that where I've been tired or very like sleep deprived, and an event would happen, and I would just be like, "Whoa, okay, all right, now we're moving," and then you get tired again. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. I really hope that in my journey to 100 milers, I never have a race that is canceled, though I think the probability is definitely there, for it to happen because it's just so many races. I have had multiple events where we're pulled off course, for a little while either during the 24-hour while the clock still ticked down, or during this backyard ultra queenie where, we're pulled off for 3 yards. But I just as long as it's not like extremely dangerous, like I'm talking, a literal tornado or something like that, I feel you can still continue moving forward. I'm not one to want to get pull off course, because I want to accomplish this goal in this journey because it takes a lot of resources to get out and do one of these things. And, I'm 23 years old. I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have a lot of funding, so it's very tough to go for all these things. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. It does make for good memories and experience stories, definitely.
absolutely. So this year I'm committed to I run commuting. I've been running commuting to work for like 2 years now. So I'm outside no matter what, like no matter the weather. And there's been a few times lately where like, cause we've had some crazy, like you're not too far from here. We've had some wild weather in the Midwest, and I've actually like inadvertently ran in like a tornado warning and just had like no idea. So it's pretty scary when you like realize it later. But yeah, to like definitely wakes you up when you realize that the weather's getting really sketchy and you're like trying to beat it, or it's like basically barreling down on you. But my question is, I guess I have a two-part question to Queenie this year. Outside of like you said, sleep was like an issue, but what do you think went well with Queenie? Like, if you had to like highlight a few things, what do you think? I mean, I know we running is like that one thing that we can never be perfect at it. I think that's why people like us love it. It's like the chase of it. But what do you think was like went really well, like perfect for Queenie this year?
Like I said, Joe, I am very open to every possibility. So for me to be able to hit a distance PR and I guess you could say in placement, I don't really care too much about placement, but in the world's view of it, taking the assist is pretty dang good. Um, I just think everything that happened was amazing. Even though like we got pulled off course for a little bit, and I didn't enjoy that too much, I still feel like that was perfect for recovery for some people. I feel like some of us rebounded well from that sleep to push into the second day. So maybe some people wouldn't have hit 100 miles if they didn't get that little break right there. I don't know. Like there's endless possibilities. But I mean, perfection. I would say also nothing went perfect. Like the first day it was really hot. The first night it was storming like that. The second day was just like cool chill temps. It was dystopian out there, windy a little bit. The second night was freezing temperatures, like literally almost freezing temperatures. It was like 70 or 37 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even a little bit colder. Um, and so like weather wise, when it comes down to like injury wise, the injury came. I wasn't expecting that to happen. Like I said earlier, my fitness is very high. I feel like I could have gone for forever essentially, and um the sleep comes as it is. I think everything played out perfectly for the experience it was, and even if, I've ended up a yard later or a yard earlier, I still feel it would have been perfect how it was because that's just the way it played out. So I guess that's my best answer for that question.
Yeah, I love that. Man, that's incredible. I'm trying to wrap my mind around that kind of mileage. Like it's something that I want badly. Man, like I said, I've been like my relationship with the backyard's been off and on, and I've never given them like their due. I think I might have already said this before we hit record. This year, it's like, all right, I'm gonna give the backyard the justice that it deserves because it's always like I always go into a backyard with like, if I get 50 miles today, cool, like, and I'll just use this for like a training for something else, and that's not how I want to treat my next backyard's in May. Grind on the Grid is my next one. But I just never given one like it's proper, like just go, like don't quit in the chair, just keep hitting loops till you can. Like I want to, I want to make sure that I don't make it to my whatever my last loop is, my last lap. I want to make sure I go till I don't make that corral back. So that's my goal this year. Um, but I've always run into like problems either I just like have like an arbitrary distance in my head, which a backyard isn't supposed to have a finish line, or I get like disorganized at them. That's been my problem. So I'm trying to work on my organization. Is that something that you're good at for these? Like, do you have like an organization set up for your backyards?
Usually I have crew, I have my dad that's usually there and he essentially knows what I want, after every yard roughly. I do, have been, advancing on like, the close techniques, so I've like written down, um, roughly what yardage I think I'll change my clothes, but of course that can adapt too, because sometimes when I'm out there, I'm like, oh man, like I would really like dry clothes right now because it has been raining, stopped raining hours ago, and so then it kind of changes that. So just being open to adapting to all the conditions, I feel is the best way to play it out. But also you see people like Phil Gore, which is, the which is the best backyard ultra marathon runner of all time, and just by the records alone. Um, and he has everything to a T essentially, on his planning and he executes it. So I think everybody's different, but I think the majority of people, um, as long as you're open to every possibility, then it'll work. I think when it comes down to, that ideal of, oh, all right, 50 miles, it would be all right, or 100 miles is massive, that'd be great, and then you get there and then you end up dropping, then you think about it later and you're like, oh man, I could have gone farther. I think all of that can be canceled out if you truly convince your mind that the course is your home. I always tell so when I'm out there, running these loops, running these yards, I know I have to get back. I have to get back because I have to get on to the next yard because this is my home. This is where I live. Why would I want to be anywhere else? So and when depends on which backyard you're at, but at Queenie, there's like this, I think, stadium area. Maybe it's a hockey arena or something. So there's like cars that come in every morning and then they leave at night, and then there's like a little night rush where they come in. Maybe it's like night games going on or something there. So it's kind of interesting just seeing everybody else go home. And there's a clip in this YouTube video where I'm like, everybody's going home. Good thing we're already home, So it's just like, just essentially just convincing your mind and just like holding on to the ideal that this place is where you belong, because then why would you want to leave? You wouldn't like if you're sitting, in and you wake up in the morning, at I don't know, 6 a.m. in the morning, or for me, since I work nights at Chipotle, I wake up at like 11 to noon. Um, I don't really want to get out of my bed, I don't really want to go home, but do because we got to go to work and do all this stuff, so imagine if like you didn't have to leave at all, and like you truly wanted to just stay home, like essentially just make that course your home and you'll be there. And when it comes to like those milestones, it's important to acknowledge that they're milestones, but how different do you feel at, 62.07 miles versus 62.08 miles? You don't feel that different. That's only a couple steps. And like I said earlier, these things, like milestones are just barriers that we put inside our head. It's not actually real. Like it is a mile, it is 100 miles, but it's not like there's no wall there, like imagine if numbers weren't real, or time wasn't real, like that was something that we never created as human beings. Imagine how far we could go if we just experience it for the journey and we just keep moving. We could go essentially endless. And people do that, with across the country runs, or there's been multiple people that have ran across other countries, or like the hardest geezer that ran across all of Africa, so it's just like take the perception of it and acknowledge that it's there, but let it control you. Like whenever I look at a half marathon now, of course it's a half marathon, right? It's 13.1 miles, but I know that it's a half marathon, but I hold that in the back of my head and I just look at 13.1 the same as I look at 14.1. It's just another mile. That's it. So when it comes to these milestones, I think it's important to not let them control you. And that's how you can go further, is just to live on the trail and just keep moving.
Oh man, you just said a lot of really good stuff there. Damn. Yeah, the course is my home. I've never looked at it that way. I'm gonna have to use that on May 9th. Yeah, so that's incredible. I really love your insight on that. That's neat. Yeah, I mean, think about it. Numbers really aren't real. It's just like something we made up, and then we use that. It's just like something you can't hold, like you said. But then it's amazing how much weight we put on something that you can't physically touch. You can experience time, but it's not like I can hold 100 miles or 24 hours. So I don't know. You just we kind of blew my mind with some of that stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna make the course my home. I like that. I need to get
Yeah.
man. I'm so disorganized too. I think yeah. I was like to your point. You look at like Phil Gore's video, and it's like things are like this is each lap and each loop, and it's like damn, that is like incredible how someone could be that organized. But being that said, you can be as organized as you want to, and if you keep putting those barriers, like placing those barriers, like you mentioned, what good does that do you? So yeah, man, that was a hell of a way of thinking about it. So I will definitely be using all of that. That was incredible. Um, so what do you think? I bet I know the answer to this. What do you think your limit is? Like, are you just gonna like you you probably like don't. It'd be interesting to see what it is like, and watch you keep pursuing it. And like, where do you think that will take you? I guess I'm just super jazzed about that.
I I honestly don't think limits are real. I don't believe they're real at all. And that's the thing, right? Because, clearly we can't run 40 miles per hour. So there must be a limit on the top speed that we can do as human beings. And that's true. But on things when it comes to mileage, in terms of distance mileage, or things when it comes to like the amount of times that you can flick a coin, like you could do things like that infinitely, essentially. Because we keep taking in energy in terms of like food and sleep and like hydration and stuff, and that's what powers us to keep moving forward and keep doing that. So of course, there is a couple, like other like limits that are actually real that we can't physically do as human beings. Like we can't fly, like with our own bodies. Like we've never done that before. We've used machines to help us. But when it comes to distance mileage, honestly, I don't think there's a limit at all. As long as you're sleeping, you're eating, you're taking hydration, and and you can put your mindset in the fact that you live on the trail, and you keep moving forward, I think limits are boundless. And I say that all the time. And when it came to the second 100 miler for the Jackpot Ultras, I couldn't hit 100 miles in 24 hours. So some people might say, hey, you hit your limit, but I kept moving forward after the race, and I hit 100 miles, an hour or so after the race, and so in a way, they're not real because I just hit 100 miles. I just did what I seeked out to do, and I couldn't do it in 24 hours, of course. Um, but there were so many factors that led to that moment too, and with sleep deprivation involved. And I spent about 40 minutes in a porta potty because an incident that happened there. And so like there's so many factors that were outside of my control for that. Um, but no, I think in terms of mileage, I think you can go infinitely, and that's what the hardest geezer has shown by running across Africa. I think there's some guy that wants to run across the world. I'm sure multiple people that want to run across the world. I don't know if someone's actively just running while doing it. I think there was a guy that was running and cycling and swimming or something like that. They're, like just limits are boundless. You can do anything you set your mind to. Seriously.
Oh man, I love that. Yeah, you gave me definitely a lot of things to consider for that. Like, man, good stuff. So okay, something I would be remiss in not ask you. Did you listen to music at all for any of Queenie or any of the? I mean, you've done so much this year. I guess I can't pinpoint one thing, but I guess recency bias would be at Queenie. Did you listen to any music at all at Queenie?
Yeah. Yeah, I had music in my ears. Usually when I'm out there running and I'm running with somebody else, I would just have one AirPod in my ear, on the other side of them, um, so I can hear them and talk to them. So sometimes like I just listen to music as in it's just playing in the background and I don't even notice that it's there until we're done with the conversation and my mind's not on anything else, and then it just kind of locks in on the music. And sometimes I don't want to listen to music at all, so I just have it out and I'm just running for fun, but or just running without tunes. But no, usually it's always in my ears, and I just choose to listen to it or not, subconsciously or consciously. So
Cool. What's something? Okay, I guess the reason I'm asking is we also so this show is on a network of like several shows, and we also have a music podcast called What's in the Earbuds, and I always ask like what are you listening to lately? Like what's been something that's been like maybe on repeat lately for you, or something that's just like just really like hit home lately in your like day to day playlist while you're running? I'll add it to the
Um,
play. I'll add this to our like community playlist too.
okay. Yeah. I mean, so the type of music I listen to is all across the board. I feel like most people in this world actually listen to a lot of different genres. I just don't listen to country. That's not really my thing. I'll listen to folk, but no, I mean, recently it's been more like, more in there. I would say like EDM stuff. I don't know why, but my recommended playlist recommended that a couple days ago, and so I've just been kind of listening to a whole bunch of random songs like that recently. But I think when it comes to individual songs, there is this one song that kind of hit uh, around a couple weeks ago, and I've been listening to it here and there. And the video is really good, the music video for this. And if you dive into the music video and just like truly like look at what the guy's doing and like ask yourself these questions like why is he doing this, and you can truly see, how beautiful life itself can be. And I feel like that amplified the song a little bit more, but it's called Alive with a capital A, Alive, and then an exclamation mark at the end. It's by a guy named Bakar.
Okay,
um so yeah, it's a pretty chill song. And it draws a lot of emotion, and I think that's why I like it so much. So
cool. Yeah, I'll add it to the playlist, and then I'll check it out in the morning too. Um, uh, yeah, you love my buddy Derek. I never listened to like EDM or house music until me and my buddy Derek ran Mohegan 100, and like I forgot my earbuds. And you know how it is like when you're running somebody. Eventually, like the conversation gets quiet because we were just kind of like I don't know, we're just moving through the woods together, and we were like sharing earbuds.
mhm.
Um, and he that was like my first exposure to like EDM music, and like ever since then I've been like going down that like EDM like house music rabbit hole, which I never thought I would say.
Mhm.
But I love it. But so I'll definitely add it to the playlist and I'll give it a listen. Um, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. I don't want to take up like a whole bunch of your time either tonight, but I have a question. Let's say, tell me something about that you have learned. We had Nicholas Steele before running, and like now, what is something that you think you've learned from there to here? Like, I know that's a big question, but I guess I'm just super curious. Like, would you think that those are two different people? Like, I guess I want to know, like Nick before and Nick now. Like, what do you think you've learned about yourself, or like, what's been like a big breakthrough you've had? You've ran a lot of miles, and we have a lot. When we're running that many miles, we have nothing but time. So I guess I'm just curious, like, what kind of breakthroughs you've had along this journey.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. But it's something that I definitely want to, talk about, and I'm excited you asked that. I would say that Nick before ultra marathon and Nick now, um, we're both the same person. We are. We both share the same origin story. We both share the same, traits. The only difference is that I've experienced life more now than I did then. And the biggest breakthrough that I've had is wanting to live life, wanting to move on to the next day and wanting to live it, and thrive in it. And that was something before that I didn't want to do. I dreaded moving on to the next day. And that was something that I seriously struggled with. And it was very tough to, want to live. But ever since, I discovered ultra and spent more time out there. And when you spend more time out on the trail, you have more time to think, and so, and that just goes endlessly. The more miles you're out there, the more time you have to think, and the more time you have to learn about yourself individually, internally, and learn, from like life experience from these races when you're chatting with people. And I've truly found something that I'm passionate for in life. And before, I didn't even think that I had a passion ever, like that was here for me on this earth. I didn't think anything was here for me. And I was still running at the time, I was still doing like, shorter distance triathlons. I was still doing, I think my distance PR at the time was like a little less than a marathon. And, but I didn't know running was the thing for me until I kept pouring my love into it. And so that's why when it comes to like anybody in this entire world, if you think you might like something, but you don't really feel you have too much of a purpose anywhere, just pour a little more of your love into that one thing and see what can come out of it, because it can truly be beautiful. Like now, like I want to move forward the next day. I want to, like, there are many days where I don't want to go for a run, right? But I still have to essentially to continue to progress, through these ultra marathons. But I know once I get out there and I start running, I'm going to feel better and I'm going to be happy. And I know by the end of the run, I'm going to feel accomplished. And I think a big stepping stone that I made was starting to post on social media, and not just to, gain followers or something like that, but it's to inspire people and see people change their lives. There's been a couple people that I've seen, many people that I've seen got inspired, but a couple people never done 100 miles before. And after, we started following each other, and after they're, seeing the content that I was putting out, they ran their first 100 miler and then they discovered within themselves and they did. And another one, a guy named Ryan, and he's done multiple 100 milers in the last year. And that's like when I met him first, he was doing his first 100 miler, so just seeing people discover that within themselves and then like, continue to pour their love into it and like create something great, and just experience life and live it. Like that's one of the most beautiful things. So, um, if there were any like words that I could say, to my previous self, um, I I would probably just tell him, to just keep moving forward and to pursue that love, whatever he might think that love might be. It could be anything. It could be, racing cars. It could be, a business that I would have, or it could be, um, like I like to use the term smelling rocks. If you truly love smelling rocks for some reason, I'm sure the more rocks you smell, the better you're going to get at it, and the more linked all the rocks from each other. Or I'm sure you could create something out of that. But yeah, I mean, the only way to carve your path towards the future is to, take those steps into the unknown. And that's what I've done countless times again and again, not just in mileage, but in my own personal, mindset. So I've conquered a lot of things that I truly didn't believe were possible. And I feel that has helped me, become who I am today. So
Oh man, that's beautiful, dude. Thank you. First of all, just thank you for sharing that. You got me. Yeah, that really got me. That's good. That's good stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Yeah, you got me fired up. So you inspired me. Like I said, I've been following along, and like I think you got me. Like I just need to plan out my own 100 miler and just go for it. Also, tell everybody where they can like what's your YouTube. Tell everybody where they can find your YouTube channel. Like I highly recommend your YouTube channel to anybody. Like I love those videos too.
and thank you. Yeah. It's just my full name. So Nicholas Steele. And or I'm sure you could just search up 100 miles maybe on YouTube, and maybe I might pop in there. My videos usually don't get too much reach as of right now. It's definitely growing. But I think it's something where, it's just going to take a little time, probably load as the algorithm kicks in or something like that. But yeah, I just try to share, the courses and the love for running, and the experiences that I have, out there on the trail. But it's just Nicholas Steele on there. And then my Instagram account is Nick Steele Runs. And then my Facebook account is Nicholas Steele.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that yeah, just keep doing it, man. Like you're gonna reach the people that need to find you. Because I don't think at the time, like I had been following along for a while and I had watched some of your videos, but I think some like the last one that I watched just came up because I just searched like ultra running docs. So you're popping up like in the right places. So You must be onto something. Um, yeah, keep it up, man. I'm really excited for the Queenie video. That's got me stoked. Um, yeah, so whenever that comes out, I'll be checking that out.
Yeah,
Uh,
me
one more
too.
question.
Really
One more
good.
question. If you had to leave anybody that's like curious about this, because I mean, from an outsider looking in, some of these conversations that we have about distance and like when I was first like diving into ultra distance, I was like terrified of these like numbers. And and I guess if someone was like new in their journey or like wanting to take on their first whatever distance it is, it doesn't have to be like you said, it doesn't have to be 100 miles, it doesn't have to be a marathon. But if you had some like advice to give someone that's like even wanting to like explore like any limits, it doesn't have to be 100 miles, like and it's new to them, what would be like your advice to them to like kind of get out of their own way and take on like those challenges?
I would say just drop all aspect of time, and just find your love for the course out there, like watch the birds that fly by, watch the leaves fall to the ground, listen to the crunch of those leaves when you're stepping on them. Jump over the snakes if, you almost step on them and feel the excitement of not stepping on the snake and also the adrenaline within you. There's been many times I've almost stepped on a snake, and it's interesting looking at those feelings that you feel, those emotions, and just like looking at them and experiencing them and reflecting on them. And this does sound like very hippie, but like just having all these experiences, whether they're good or they're bad, just like all the chafing pain, just listen to all these individual signals that you're getting from this world and just like truly find its beauty within it. Like it's really beautiful when a sunrise comes up or when a sunset goes down, and like take it in, seize that moment and just hold on to it as you keep moving forward, and a couple hours after then, if you're chatting with someone, be like, man, that was a beautiful sunset, right? And they're like, oh yeah, that was beautiful, and then that helps them engage their mind, where they're probably, let's say they were in a low, now you brought the sunset back to them, and now they're thinking about the sunset for maybe even the next 20 steps, but now those next 20 steps will feel effortless, and they'll just flash by. So I'd say just take in the whole course for what it is and experience the whole journey within itself. Don't worry too much about the time or the distance, just keep moving forward no matter what. And I could say that 1,000 times, just keep moving forward and you'll be where you want to be. Just problem solve all the problems that come up and just keep moving forward and love it, just experience it.
Hell yeah, man, that's good stuff, man. Yeah, absolutely agree. And just to double back on something you say, I love nothing more than the sound of crunching leaves underneath my feet, man. It gets me like, and snow. Like if it's just like that little like thin crunchy snow, I love that shit. I'm just like, oh, I love that little like that little crunch. Yeah. So yeah, totally understand. I love that stuff. But um, yeah, that was great advice too. Um, dude, thank you for coming on. You've given me a lot of things to consider. It was cool. Like it's cool getting to know you more. It's been kind of neat following along. Like I said, I could go on and say how much I enjoy putting out there because I really, really do. I think the world needs more positivity, man. And you're putting a lot of it out there, and I just really love. Is all I really have to say about that. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, everyone give Nick a follow. Like I said, I could go on and on forever about what he's doing in the running space, but it's just good stuff, and it'll get you fired up for your next goal. Your next race. So thanks, Nick, for coming on, and man, we'll have to catch up some other time because I feel like you're going to do some really really epic things. Not that you haven't already, but I can't wait to see where it goes, man. So we'll have to find a time to double back and get you back on, and as you keep progressing in this crazy world of ultra distance running.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe, and I appreciate you having me on. I my schedule is a little weird with, working Chipotle and running and editing, like all three of those combined. I'm probably putting in, 80 to 90-hour weeks. So it is pretty odd. And I just have, a couple days off per week. But, I'm always open to talk about running, always. I love it. I just want to gain the wisdom with chatting with more people, and yeah, I mean, um, you don't have to like the people listening, you don't have to follow me if you don't want to, but yeah, definitely look at some of the content. I hope you draw some inspiration from it. And yeah, I mean, I post like a lot of goofy stuff out there. Sometimes like it's just like spin around reels around water towers and stuff, and it kind of seems pointless, just insanity itself, but sometimes like reels that are like that, it's just cool to me that it draws emotion out of people, that are like in awestruck and they're like, oh, you can actually do that, and actually seen many people um uh recreate stuff like that, like Strava flyovers where they loop something small, like let's say like a set of trees or something, and it's cool that, they've drawn inspiration from, my water tower reels or something like that. I'm assuming, because I hadn't seen any reels like that before I did all the water tower stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said earlier, the world is what you make of it, and the most important part is that you live it and you cherish its memories, and you just, try to be kind to each other and help each other out, and just live life, love it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I feel like that's a perfect like ender to this conversation because you just like you put a nice bow on top of that, Nick. So thank you. That was awesome. Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening. Like this, I don't know when this is going to publish. It'll be a couple of weeks, but yeah, man, you just gave me a lot of things to like brainstorm and it's like stew over as I take on my next backyard. I'll be thinking about a lot of things that you said here. So thank you for coming on, Nick, and thank you everybody for listening. Um, and I will see you all next time beyond the finish line.